Texas is a land of dust, wind, and forgotten whispers. A land where old towns once thrived under burning skies. But some of those towns died suddenly. Left behind like skeletons under the sun. Empty homes. Silent roads. And shadows that move long after all the people have gone. Tonight, we walk through those ghost towns. The 20 most haunted abandoned places in Texas. Where memories cling to broken walls. Where spirits wander through ruins. And where the past still breathes in the dark. Take a deep breath. The journey begins now. Greetings to you, my friend. Thank you for joining me tonight as we travel into the lonely and eerie corners of Texas. Across stretches of land most people avoid. Through towns forgotten by the living. But never forgotten by the dead. Ghost towns are everywhere in this huge state. But some of them are more than empty places. Some hold echoes that refuse to fade. Creaking doors. Strange lights. Soft footsteps on quiet streets. And cold touches on warm nights. These 20 towns each have their own story. Their own warning. Their own restless spirit waiting in the silence. As you listen, imagine walking through a deserted street. Imagine an old sign swinging above your head. Imagine a window suddenly lighting up even though the house has no electricity. Imagine hearing someone whisper your name from behind you. Even when you know you are alone. Before we begin, let me ask you something. If you had the chance to explore an abandoned Texas ghost town at midnight, would you go inside? Or would you stand far away and watch from a safe distance? I really want to know. Under the wide desert sky, the old Toya school stands alone. The sun bleaches its walls by day. And the wind carries dust across its empty playground. From a distance, it looks like just another forgotten building in a quiet Texas town. But those who have passed through at night tell a different story. One filled with soft echoes that seem to rise from within the abandoned classrooms. They speak of voices that drift through the cracked windows. A gentle call, as if a teacher is taking attendance. Murmured replies, as though students once eager to learn are still repeating their lessons. Travelers claim they hear these sounds even when the halls remain still and untouched. The building itself rests in a strange calm. Its floors are old and weathered, its paint chipped from decades of wind and heat. Desks sit in neat rows, frozen in time. The chalkboard still holds faint marks from long ago, as if the last lesson was never fully erased. When night settles across the desert, the school takes on a different presence. The silence becomes heavier. Stars appear above like cold lanterns while the windows begin to darken into glassy mirrors. The slightest breeze can feel like a breath against the back of the neck. The air grows cooler inside than it is outside. Every sound becomes sharper. As visitors walk deeper into the school, they often pause near the old main classroom. This is where the strange activity is most often reported. Some say they hear children reciting lines, the rhythm slow and steady. Others hear the faint scrape of a chair moving across the floor. A soft tap, as though a piece of chalk were touching the board. No one has ever seen a figure inside, yet the sounds continue without explanation. The ambience is not violent, nor does it carry anger. Instead, it feels like a memory caught in an endless loop. A lingering presence that refuses to fade despite the empty desks and long-abandoned halls. Travelers who approach from the outside share similar experiences. Many say they heard choir-like murmurs floating through the warm desert air. The voices rise, fall, and blend into the wind before fading into silence. A few claim the sound follows them for a moment, as if drifting at their heels until they move far enough away. Locals rarely visit the school at night. They have their own stories, passed down quietly among families who have lived in the area for generations. Some believe the voices belong to former students who felt a strong connection to their teachers and classmates. Others think the sound is simply the building itself, expanding and settling after years of heat and cold. Yet these explanations fail to account for the clarity of the voices people describe. A traveler once recalled hearing a steady cadence. Each syllable grew more distinct the longer they listened. They stepped closer to the window, convinced someone was inside. When they finally gathered the courage to peek through the glass, they saw only darkness and rows of desks that hadn't moved in decades. Another visitor described a moment when the whispering stopped completely. They stood frozen in the doorway, waiting. Then a single sound echoed from deep within the hallway. It was faint, like the gentle closing of a book. The visitor left quickly, but the memory stayed with them. There are also reports of subtle movements inside the classrooms. A curtain shifting even without a breeze. A paper rolling slightly across a desk before falling still. These moments are small, but they linger in the mind, raising questions about what remains unsettled in the school. Despite these experiences, Toya is not known for dark legends or tragic tales. Its haunting is rooted more in mystery than fear. These moments are small, but they linger in the mind, raising questions about what remains unsettled in the school. The old classrooms feel like a place where time paused but never fully disconnected from the past. The whispering seems to echo with the routine of everyday life rather than sorrow. Shadows stretch across the floor, shifting as the moon rises higher. Every corner feels alive with the weight of a forgotten moment. The building seems to breathe with stories that never finish their final chapter. Visitors often leave with the same strange feeling. They describe a sense of being watched, but not with malice. It is more like a quiet curiosity, as if unseen students are studying the living just as intently as the living observe them. The sensation fades once outside, but the memory stays sharp long after the desert air grows warm again. Those who have explored the surrounding area say the phenomenon extends beyond the classroom walls. Sometimes the whispering floats across the sand, carried by the wind. On rare nights, the echoes drift as far as the edge of town. These moments are brief and unpredictable, appearing like soft notes in an otherwise silent desert night. Over the years, the Toya School has become a quiet landmark for those who enjoy haunted locations. Some come searching for a clear answer, hoping to record evidence. Others simply want to stand in a place where history still speaks. Many leave without capturing anything unusual, yet most admit they felt the atmosphere shift as soon as they approached the building. The desert around the school adds to the mystery. The endless landscape makes every sound seem amplified. Small movements echo across the open ground, blending with the distant call of animals that roam at night. The school sits in the center of this vast space, a lone reminder of a time when the area was filled with the voices of students running across the playground. Now those voices return only as echoes. The whispering never grows loud enough to reveal its source. It remains soft and rhythmic, always out of reach. It drifts through the halls, brushing against the old walls and aging desks, carrying the weight of memories that refuse to be forgotten. By sunrise, the school stands quiet again. The heat rises. The windows glow with morning light. The wind sweeps the desert floor as though wiping away the night's secrets. Anyone passing by would see nothing unusual. Yet those who have heard the whispers know the truth. When darkness falls and the stars appear above the desert once more, the Toya School awakens. The voices return, repeating lessons no living teacher speaks. The echoes rise and fall inside the lonely halls, continuing night after night. The school remains silent by day. But when the sun sinks behind the distant hills, the whispering classroom comes alive again. Glenrio sits in the wide quiet of the Texas and New Mexico borderlands. A place where the wind carries memories longer than the towns that once thrived there. The old alignment of Route 66 cuts straight through its silent heart. A ribbon of cracked pavement stretching toward a horizon that always feels slightly out of reach. Travelers who come this way often describe a strange sense of being watched. As if the past itself is waiting just beyond the desert heat. Among these stories, one tale rises above all others, the legend of the vanishing hitchhiker of Glenrio. The road into Glenrio feels hollow, as if it absorbs sound rather than echoing it. Sun-faded buildings lean against time, their windows empty and dark. Rusted gas pumps stand like forgotten sentinels. And tumbleweeds drift across the highway in slow, wandering arcs. For many years, drivers passing through this desolate stretch have reported seeing a lone woman at the roadside. She appears at the edge of the fading asphalt, standing just close enough to catch the eye, her hand raised in a silent plea for help. Most describe her as wearing light clothing that flutters unnaturally in the breeze. Some say her posture reflects exhaustion, as though she has been walking for miles under the unforgiving sun. She stands near a cluster of crumbling structures that once formed Glenrio's small commercial strip. At night, the glow of headlights makes her figure appear even more fragile, a pale shape emerging from the desert darkness. Drivers slow down instinctively, pulled in by the human need to help someone stranded in such an isolated place. But as their vehicles approach, the woman fades. Sometimes she melts away like mist under a morning sun. Other times she vanishes in a sudden blink, leaving behind empty road and swirling dust. Witnesses often continue driving in stunned silence, unsure of what they saw or whether they imagined the entire encounter. What truly unsettles people is what they find afterward. When they finally stop to gather their thoughts, a cold handprint is often discovered on one of the car windows. The imprint looks fresh, as if someone pressed their fingers onto the glass just moments before. No footprints appear on the ground nearby. No sign of another presence remains. Only that frozen shape, marked by something unseen and unexplained. Local residents, few as they are, have passed the story down for decades. They say the woman may have been a traveler who disappeared long ago while trying to cross the expansive plains. The harsh conditions of the region have taken many lives through the years, from travelers stranded in remote stretches to those caught in sudden dust storms. In a place as vast and unforgiving as the high desert, it is easy for both people and their stories to slip away without answers. Some believe the figure appears because she never reached her destination. Perhaps she was seeking help that never arrived. The legend suggests she remains on Route 66, reaching out to anyone who might finally notice her, hoping that someone will stop long enough to understand what she wants. Others interpret her presence as a warning, a silent reminder of how quickly the desert can turn dangerous. The land around Glenrio is beautiful but unpredictable, capable of shifting from scorching heat to chilling winds in moments. Travelers who have experienced the encounter often describe an overwhelming sense of sadness afterward. The feeling lingers long after the road has reclaimed its stillness. They recall the image of that lonely figure illuminated for a heartbeat in their headlights, only to dissolve the moment they drew near. Many say the experience feels less like a haunting and more like a memory replaying itself on endless loop. Drivers who pass through Glenrio during twilight speak of the colors that fill the sky. Shades of dusty orange, deep crimson, and fading violet wash over the empty buildings, giving the place a dreamlike quality. In that quiet hour, the boundary between present and past seems thin. It is in this space that the hitchhiker is most often seen, waiting where the last rays of sunlight slip behind the mesas. Long-haul truckers have their own stories. Some claim the woman appears in their mirrors long after they leave Glenrio behind. A soft shape stands on the shoulder miles from where she was first spotted. When they slow down to look more closely, the figure loses form and disappears into the night. The dust settles, the road stretches on, and the engine continues to hum. But the sense of being followed remains. Others recall hearing faint tapping sounds inside the cab or feeling the air turn noticeably colder just for a moment. These experiences never last long, but they stay sharp in the mind, etched into memory just like the handprints some drivers later discover. None of the witnesses seek attention for their stories. Most share them reluctantly, usually only when asked directly about strange events along Old Route 66. Despite the quiet surrounding Glenrio, the region carries a deep history. The once bustling town served as a stopping point for travelers seeking rest during long trips between Amarillo and Albuquerque. In its prime, neon lights glowed across the desert night, and the smell of gasoline mixed with the scent of warm pavement. But when the interstate bypassed the town, Glenrio faded rapidly, leaving behind only echoes of movement and laughter. The vanishing hitchhiker seems to symbolize that sense of erasure. She is the lingering spirit of a place forgotten by time, a silent witness to the decline of a once lively roadside community. Some believe she represents every traveler who was lost along the route, every journey that ended too soon, every hope carried away by shifting winds. She is the silent witness to the decline of a once lively roadside community. Visitors who explore Glenrio today often report a strange feeling even without seeing the apparition. The silence feels heavy, as if the buildings themselves are holding their breath. Footsteps crunch gently against gravel and broken glass. Warm air carries the faint smell of dust and distant sagebrush. It is easy to understand how the imagination awakens in such a setting. But the consistency of the sighting suggests something more than imagination alone. Many travelers choose to drive through Glenrio without stopping. They sense the weight of its stories and prefer to keep going, letting the road swallow the silence behind them. Still, some pause to take photographs or walk between the structures, searching for traces of the past. Those who stay long enough sometimes feel a soft breeze brush past them, cool and gentle in contrast to the dry heat. It often comes without warning, as if something unseen has moved close before drifting away again. Nighttime brings an entirely different atmosphere. The sky opens wide with stars, and the moon casts pale light across the broken motel signs and boarded windows. The dark shapes of distant mesas become silhouettes at the edge of sight. This is when the town feels most alive with memory. Shadows seem to stretch a little too far. The air seems to hum softly with a subtle, unplaceable presence. Travelers who pass through at this hour often quicken their pace, sensing they are not entirely alone. Whether the hitchhiker is a spirit, a mirage born from desert heat, or an echo of a life cut short, her presence has become part of Glenrio's identity. The desire to help. The fear of the unknown. Those who drive this forgotten stretch of Route 66 carry her memory with them long after they leave. They remember the uneasy chill that follows, the kind that makes the heart beat faster even when the road is straight and empty. Glenrio remains a place where time feels suspended. Where past and present mingle in the dust. The vanishing hitchhiker endures as a mysterious guide through this abandoned landscape. Forever waiting at the edge of the road. And for those who pass through, the story stays with them. Carried across the miles like a whisper from the desert itself. The desert town of Catarina sits quietly beneath a vast Texas sky, where the wind carries memories more faithfully than living voices. At the edge of this forgotten place stands the old church, reduced to a pale skeleton of weathered stone. Its roof has long since collapsed. Its wooden doors lean inward as if tired of holding back time. Visitors say the sun itself seems to dim when they approach it, as though the land remembers something sorrowful within its walls. For generations, locals have spoken of a woman who appears there at dusk. They call her the Desert Bride. Some describe her as soft and glowing, like a memory stepping out of a dream. Others say she moves with the weight of a story that was never allowed to end. Travelers who drive past the church often feel a presence before they even see her, a sense that someone is standing just beyond the corner of their eye, waiting. When the hour grows quiet and the sky turns copper, a figure emerges from the shadow of the ruined archway. Her dress appears torn by time, though no wind seems strong enough to lift its frayed edges. Her veil drifts gently behind her, suspended in the still air as if held up by invisible hands. She walks the broken aisle with slow, deliberate steps, as though she is following a path she has walked for decades. Many believe she searches for someone who never arrived. The sense of longing around her is so strong that some witnesses say they felt their chest tighten, as if the emotion belonged to them instead of her. Those who have seen her often struggle to describe the experience. They say it feels real but unreal at the same time. A moment where the past and present brush against each other before separating once more. Local stories tell of a young woman who once planned to be married in the church before a violent storm struck the region. Roads washed away. Riders lost their way in the rain. Some say her groom tried to reach her but never found the church. Others say he turned back and never returned at all. The truth has faded with time, but the legend remains. A bride waiting in her dress, listening to thunder fade in the distance, believing every sound was her beloved approaching. She waited until the candles burned down to stubs. She waited until the world outside. According to the stories, those who explore the ruins today sometimes report strange sounds. The soft echo of footsteps on stone where no one stands. A faint rustling as if fabric is brushing against an old wooden pew. Some hear a quiet murmur that seems to come from the far end of the church, though the building is empty. A few claim they have heard a gentle hum, almost like a voice repeating a name lost to time. Even more unsettling are the experiences reported by travelers passing through Katerina at night. Drivers say their headlights catch a pale figure near the church doorway. She raises one hand slightly, as if asking for patience. But when the drivers slow down or try to get a clearer view, the figure dissolves into the twilight. Only the impression of a presence remains. A feeling that someone is still standing there, watching the road for a familiar silhouette. Longtime residents warn visitors not to approach her too closely. Not out of fear, but out of respect. They believe she still hopes that the person she once loved will return to her. To interrupt that search would be to step into a story that does not belong to the living. Instead, they suggest simply listening. The desert, they say, carries whispers that feel like memories. If you stand still, you might hear distant laughter, or the soft rhythm of footsteps walking down an aisle that no longer exists. The church ruins have become a place where time seems suspended. During daylight hours, it appears like any abandoned structure. But when night begins its slow descent, something changes. The shadows lengthen. The air grows still. The stone walls seem to hold their breath. Visitors often describe a calming sorrow in the air, as though the land itself mourns the love story that was never completed. Some claim that when the moon rises over Katerina, the bride becomes easier to see. Her steps grow more defined. Her presence becomes stronger, almost tangible. A few people have said the air seemed to shimmer around them, like heat rising from sand, even though the night was cool. In rare accounts, witnesses describe the bride pausing in her walk, turning toward the doorway as if sensing someone approaching. Her posture changes slightly, filled with hope that flickers like a candle flame. But after a moment, she turns back toward the broken altar, as though reminding herself that the person she waits for has still not come. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the tale of the desert bride is not one of fear. It is a story about devotion carried beyond the boundaries of time. A love so strong that not even the vast silence of the desert could erase it. Locals speak of her with a quiet kind of affection. They say she is not a warning, but a reminder that love can leave echoes, even in places the world has forgotten. In the stillness of Katerina, the old church stands like a monument to promises that were never fulfilled. The desert winds may shift the sand. The sun may bleach the stones. But each evening, as daylight fades, the bride appears once more. She moves along the aisle with the grace of someone holding on to hope. She waits for footsteps that never return, believing that one day, the door will open and the story she began will finally reach its end. Until then, the desert holds her gently. The land remembers her vigil. And anyone who passes through Katerina at dusk may glimpse the bride in her silent walk, carrying a love that outlived the world around her. Barstow sits on the edge of long highways and open desert, a place where wind carries stories the way drifting sand carries old memories. Just outside the town limits, along a narrow road few people use after sunset, stands a small concrete bridge. It is unremarkable by daylight, a simple structure with weathered rails and faded paint. Yet as evening settles and the desert cools, the bridge transforms into one of the most unsettling locations in the region. Locals have given it a name whispered with caution. They call it the Crying Bridge. They say that at night, beneath the arch where shadows cling to every surface, a sound rises. Soft at first. Fragile. The unmistakable cry of a child calling for help. Travelers who have stopped their engines and stepped into the quiet desert air often claim the same experience. The sound does not float from the road or from the brush. It comes from directly under the bridge where the earth is dry, cracked, and empty. There is no water. No hiding place. Nothing that could hold a child. Yet the cries continue, echoing with a desperation that stirs unease deep in the chest. Some describe the voice as faint, as if the child is far away or fading. Others say it is sudden and sharp, sending a cold rush through the air that makes the night feel heavier. A few have heard something even stranger. A brief scream that rises when the moon reaches its highest point. A sound that seems to ripple through the concrete, vibrating against the earth as if the bridge itself is remembering something long buried. The story of the Crying Bridge has been shared for decades in Barstow. Elders recall hearing it when they were young, long before the road was widened and the desert changed shape. According to them, the legend began not with tragedy but with confusion. Early ranchers passing through the area reported hearing a Childa's voice without finding any evidence of a family nearby. Some believed it was the desert playing tricks, warping faraway sounds through heat and wind. Others felt something deeper was at play, something tied to the land itself. Over time, small details were added. People began to speak of a traveler who once camped beneath the bridge and left before dawn, shaken and pale. He claimed the crying grew louder as he approached the source, only to vanish entirely when he shined his lantern into the darkness. He swore the ground felt colder than the surrounding air, as if it had been touched by something unseen. His story became one of many that built the legend piece by piece. In more recent years, urban explorers and late-night drivers have documented their experiences. Some claim that the cries begin when the desert becomes still, after the last car has passed and the night creatures quiet down. Others insist the sound starts only when someone stands at the rail and listens closely. One explorer described hearing a faint whispering beneath the cries, a soft rustling like fabric brushing against rough stone. When he stepped back, the sound stopped. When he approached again, it resumed. Despite all these accounts, no clear explanation has ever emerged. No record of a child lost in the area. No report of an accident at the bridge. No historical event that would suggest a reason for such a haunting sound. Investigators who came out to study the phenomenon found nothing unusual. The acoustics were ordinary. The environment showed no signs of wildlife that could mimic a cry. And yet, the stories persist, passed down through families, repeated by visitors, and strengthened each time someone hears the sound for themselves. The land surrounding the bridge seems to play its own part in the mystery. During the day, the desert is harsh, open, and exposed to the sun. But by night, it becomes a place of shifting shadows and quiet echoes. Sound behaves unpredictably across flat terrain. It bounces, bends, and sometimes travels in ways that distort its origin. Some believe the crying could be an illusion created by distant movement, carried toward the bridge on cool night winds. But others point out that the sound occurs even on nights without a breeze, nights when the air is still and the silence feels almost too heavy. Those who have visited the bridge describe an atmosphere that is difficult to explain. The moment the sun disappears, the temperature drops swiftly. The quiet becomes more intense, as if the desert is holding its breath. The bridge stands in the center of this stillness like a solitary marker between the familiar world and something just beyond understanding. Even people who have never heard the cries say the location feels charged with memory. The kind of place where the past lingers close to the present. Some paranormal researchers suggest that the crying bridge may be an example of residual energy, a phenomenon where emotional impressions echo through time without a conscious presence behind them. If this is the case, the cries could be fragments of an event that left a deep imprint on the land. But without historical evidence, this remains speculation. Others consider the possibility that the legend grew from early misunderstandings and continued because the setting itself invites the imagination to fill in the silence. Regardless of the cause, the crying bridge has woven itself into the identity of Barstow. Locals do not fear it, but they respect it. Many avoid the road after dark, not out of superstition, but because they have no desire to confront the unknown. A few embrace the mystery, returning year after year to listen for the Childa's voice. They say the sound has changed over time. That it now feels more like an echo than a cry. As if whatever once called out is drifting farther away. Visitors who approach the bridge often carry a sense of anticipation. They stand still, listen closely, and wait. Some hear nothing but distant traffic or the soft hum of insects. Others hear something far stranger. A faint tremble beneath the structure. A small breath of cold air. A ripple of sound that rises and falls like a forgotten memory trying to return to the surface. When the moon climbs high above the desert, the entire landscape glows with pale silver light. The bridge, illuminated softly, seems taller than it is. On nights like this, the legend feels almost tangible. Many who have visited say the crying becomes sharper at this hour, as if the moon itself pulls the sound from whatever hidden corner of the desert it sleeps in. The mystery of the crying bridge endures because it refuses to offer answers. It remains a quiet puzzle at the edge of Barstow, a place where stories gather and linger. Whether the sound is a trick of the wind, an echo of the land, or something that cannot be explained. The bridge continues to inspire curiosity. Those who stand there feel a strange connection to all who came before them, all who listened, all who wondered. In the end, the crying bridge is more than a location. It is a reminder that even in a world of highways, lights, and modern certainty, there are places where the unexplained still lives. Places where the night holds secrets that resist understanding. And in the desert outside Barstow, the echo of a Childa's voice continues to rise beneath the moon, calling out across the silence, waiting for someone to hear. The desert sun casts long shadows over the ruins of Terlingua, a town that once thrived on the promise of silver. Among the abandoned buildings and dusty streets, the old mines stand silent, sealed with heavy timbers and rusted metal doors. By day, they appear inert, lifeless, a remnant of a past era. But by night, the air shifts, and the mines seem to pulse with a quiet, unseen energy. Travelers who venture near after dusk speak of lights that appear deep within the tunnels. Faint glows flicker like lanterns swinging in the hands of workers long gone. The shadows of the rocky walls twist and stretch, as if something moves just out of sight. Footsteps echo through the cavernous passages, accompanied by a rhythmic tapping, the unmistakable sound of a pickaxe striking stone. Locals have their own explanations. Some say the mines are alive with residual energy from the days when silver flowed through these veins. Others whisper that the sounds belong to a miner who never left, a man trapped in the darkness who continues his work in an endless loop. There is no malice in the presence, only persistence, a remnant of dedication and determination frozen in time. The mines themselves are a labyrinth of tunnels, shafts, and chambers. Each passage twists unpredictably. The ceilings low in some places, and widening to reveal massive caverns in others. The walls are coated in dust and mineral residue, glinting faintly under the flickering lights. Broken equipment lies scattered, and rusted tools hinting at a sudden departure, or a workday that never truly ended. Entering the area at night, visitors often describe a change in the air. The temperature drops sharply, even in the warm desert, and the silence becomes dense. Every step crunches against the gravel, every breath seems louder than normal. The mind plays tricks, expecting movement, a figure rounding the corner, yet when eyes search the darkness, nothing is there. Some travelers report feeling an invisible presence beside them, moving silently through the corridors. A subtle shift in the shadows, a cold draft that brushes the skin. The tapping of the pickaxe continues, coming from different directions, echoing in ways that defy the geometry of the tunnels. It is as if the miner is always one step ahead, just beyond reach, yet impossibly close. There are nights when the light grows brighter, as if someone carries a lantern through the mine. The glow bounces off the walls, illuminating jagged rock and narrow passageways for a brief moment before vanishing. Those who have seen it describe a strange calm that accompanies the light, a feeling that the miner is not there to harm but to continue a task unfinished. The history of Terlinguis mines adds weight to these experiences. Miners worked long, grueling hours, often in dangerous conditions. Collapses were common, and those who perished sometimes went unrecorded. Tales of men lost in the tunnels, trapped beneath tons of rock, became part of the town's collective memory. Over the years, these stories blurred with legend, creating a sense that the mines hold more than just silver beneath the surface. Travelers report that the sound of the pickaxe can sometimes be rhythmic, almost methodical, as though the miner is working toward a goal only he understands. Other times, it is sporadic, punctuated by long pauses that amplify the silence in the tunnels. Occasionally, the echoes change subtly, moving from one shaft to another, leaving the listener unsure of direction or distance. The experience is not meant to frighten, yet it carries an undeniable weight. Even when no one is nearby, the sound seems to travel, bouncing off stone and creating the impression of movement in the unseen spaces. At the mouth of the mine, the desert night stretches endlessly. The desert night stretches endlessly. Stars gleam overhead, unmoving and cold, while the faint light from the tunnel seems to pull at the imagination. The desert night stretches endlessly. Stars gleam overhead, unmoving and cold, while the faint light from the tunnel seems to pull at the imagination. Some who have lingered report feeling a strong compulsion to enter. To follow the sounds into the darkness, only to retreat at the last moment. Only to retreat at the last moment. The allure is powerful, but so is the awareness of the isolation within the mine. A few visitors have attempted to trace the light deeper into the tunnels, only to find the paths twist back on themselves or end abruptly. There are no living miners, no secret passageways left unexplored. Yet the lights persist, and the tapping continues. The presence is both elusive and tangible, an echo of human labor preserved in shadow and stone. Those who study the mines or live nearby speak with reverence and curiosity. The legend of the miner in the dark has become part of the town's identity. It is a story passed down, told to visitors and remembered with a quiet respect. It is not a tale of danger or menace, but one of dedication, persistence, and the mystery that lingers long after the silver veins have dried. Even in the harsh daylight, the mine entrances retain a sense of anticipation. The sun sets and shadows lengthen across the desert. The Minera's presence seems to awaken. The tunnels breathe, the echoes begin, and the light returns. The desert night holds its secrets tightly. But within the labyrinth of Terlingua's mines, one story endures. A miner remains in the darkness. Still searching, still working. A presence bound to the stone and the memory of his craft. For those who hear it, the sound of the pickaxe and the glow of the light are reminders that some stories never truly end, and that some spirits never leave the places they once called home. By sunrise, the desert reclaims its stillness. The mines appear lifeless once more, doors locked and dust drifting in the morning wind. Travelers depart, carrying the memory of sounds and shadows that feel almost impossible to describe. Yet as night falls again, the glow returns. The tapping resumes. The miner in the dark continues his eternal task, unseen but never gone. The town of Independence is quiet in a way that feels almost deliberate. The streets are narrow and lined with weathered brick buildings, their facades etched with the passage of time. In the center of town, the old church stands as a sentinel of memory, its stone walls worn smooth by decades of wind and sun. The steeple reaches skyward, hollow at the top, for the bell that once called the faithful to worship no longer hangs within its frame. It rusted away long ago, leaving only a silent tower that casts a long shadow over the square. By day, the church seems peaceful, almost forgotten. Sunlight spills across its worn steps, and the occasional breeze rustles through the surrounding trees. Birds circle the tower, their calls echoing softly. The town moves around it with a quiet respect, as if acknowledging that some things are meant to remain untouched. But when night falls, the air around the church shifts. Darkness deepens, and the silence becomes heavier, almost expectant. It is then that the phantom bell makes its presence known. At the stroke of midnight, a sudden sound cuts through the stillness. A ringing, clear and resonant, echoes across the empty streets. The tone is deep, carrying weight and authority, yet it also holds an ethereal quality that feels impossible. The sound comes from the empty tower, where no bell remains. The mystery deepens with every echo, leaving a sense of awe and unease that lingers long after the last note fades into the night. Locals speak of the phantom bell with a mixture of reverence and apprehension. Some claim it is the spirit of the original bell, refusing to vanish completely from the town it once served. Others suggest it is a memory that has somehow imprinted itself onto the night, repeating its calls even without a physical object to produce sound. Visitors often describe the sensation of standing beneath the tower, feeling vibrations in the air that seem almost tangible, as if the bell itself is suspended in the darkness above them. The legend traces back decades, to a time when the church was a hub of community life. On Sunday mornings, the bell would ring to gather townsfolk from their homes, signaling the start of worship. It marked weddings, funerals, and significant events, becoming a central thread in the rhythm of life in Independence. When the bell finally fell into ruin and was removed, the town expected silence to follow. Instead, it seemed the bella's voice had left a lasting imprint, haunting the tower in a way that defied explanation. Those who have stayed late into the night describe a mix of emotions during the ringing. Some feel a profound calm, as if touched by something larger than themselves. Others report a shiver of unease, an inexplicable sensation of being watched, though the streets are empty and the tower is hollow. Photographs taken of the steeple during these midnight hours often show nothing unusual, yet those present insist they heard the bell clearly. The phenomenon does not follow a predictable pattern. Some nights pass in total silence. while others are filled with a chorus of ringing that echoes for minutes before fading into stillness. The surrounding square contributes to the eerie atmosphere. Trees sway in strange rhythms as the sound carries, casting moving shadows across cobblestones. The air feels thicker during the ringing, charged with a quiet energy that is impossible to explain. Windows of nearby buildings rattle faintly, though there is no wind strong enough to cause it. For many, the experience is deeply immersive, the town itself seeming to respond to the phantom sound. The bell is not merely heard, it is felt, woven into the very fabric of Independence after dark. Visitors who investigate the church often notice the contrast between day and night. By sunlight, the tower is empty and still, a testament to decay and the passage of time. But as darkness falls, anticipation builds. Some enter the churchyard, stepping carefully across worn stone and dry leaves, waiting to witness the impossible. The ringing does not disappoint those who are patient. It arrives without warning, a reminder that some mysteries persist despite human understanding. The absence of a bell makes the sound all the more compelling, a ghostly presence that defies logic yet cannot be denied. Stories of the bell spread beyond the town. Travelers on nearby roads occasionally report hearing it in the distance. Its clear, haunting tone traveling farther than expected. Some believe it is a signal, a reminder of the history embedded in Independence. Others see it as a bridge between past and present. A voice that calls across generations, connecting those who once heard it to those who now experience its echo. There is no fear in most accounts. Only a solemn acknowledgement of something extraordinary. The church itself has become a symbol, not only of the town's history but of the mysteries that linger in quiet places. Photographers, historians, and curious travelers alike are drawn to the site, seeking to witness the ringing for themselves. Some return multiple times, each visit deepening their sense of connection to the town and its spectral bell. Even after years of study and countless personal accounts, no definitive explanation exists. The bell is gone, yet its voice remains, a paradox that continues to intrigue and inspire. The phantom ringing embodies the intersection of memory, history, and the inexplicable, leaving an indelible mark on all who encounter it. Independence remains quiet during the day, but when the clock strikes 12, the town awakens in a different way. The old church, its tower empty and still, becomes a conduit for a sound that should not exist. The phantom bell calls across the night, touching those who listen and leaving an echo that lingers long after the streets are empty once more. It is a mystery that refuses to fade, a reminder that even in places where time seems to stand still, the past is never truly gone. The road through Lobo stretches straight and empty, flanked by scrubland and the occasional mesquite tree. Travelers often drive this stretch at night, drawn by the isolation and the quiet that seems to belong to another time. At a bend in the highway stands an abandoned gas station, its paint peeling and windows clouded with dust. By day, it appears as a forgotten relic of a small town once alive with travelers and truckers. But by night, the station tells a different story. Motorists first notice it because of the lights. Faint, flickering glows seep from the windows and the canopy overhead. But as cars approach, the illusion begins to unravel. Drivers slow down, squinting through the darkness, and glimpse a figure inside. A man, waving, calling silently for help. The figure appears desperate yet strangely calm. His gestures are deliberate, meant to draw someone closer, to bridge the gap between the living and something else entirely. Some witnesses describe him as ordinary at first glance, a man in worn clothes, standing behind the counter or near the pumps. But the longer one looks, the more the details seem to blur. His face becomes hazy, his features shifting as though the light itself cannot settle on him. Many who have stopped at the station report that the instant they step out of their vehicles, the lights vanish. Flicker by flicker, until the glow is gone and the station is plunged into silence. The man disappears. Not behind a door, not behind a wall, but simply gone. Some drivers swear they felt a presence lingering after he vanished, a chill in the air, a quiet that pressed against the ears, making the desert night feel even more empty. The history of the gas station is murky, like its flickering lights. Old records suggest it was built in the mid-20th century, a stop for travelers and locals alike. Stories passed down through the town speak of a man who worked there long ago. He was known for being friendly to passing motorists, always ready to offer directions or a cold drink. One night, accounts vary, something went wrong. Some say he vanished during a storm, leaving behind only a smudge on the counter and a pump that never worked again. Others claim he stayed too long after the station closed, tied to a place he could not leave. Over the years, travelers began noticing patterns. The lights only appear after dark, usually when the moon is low or when headlights sweep past the station in just the right angle. The figure inside is always alone, waving to passers-by, and always disappears when approached. Some say that those who linger too long feel a sense of urgency in his gesture, a silent plea that is both compelling and terrifying. Witnesses often describe a feeling of being watched before they see him. The air grows heavier. Shadows seem to stretch unnaturally. And a faint hum can sometimes be heard. Like an old generator struggling to start. The station itself seems to breathe. Its broken windows and rusted pumps pulsing in time with the flickering lights. It is a place suspended between worlds. Where the past and present overlap. And where the ordinary act of stopping for fuel becomes a brush with the inexplicable. Some visitors have tried to capture evidence. Cameras set up across the road record nothing but darkness. While dashcams catch only the fleeting glimmer of light as the car passes. Those who walk to the doors report the silence pressing in. A quiet so thick it feels almost physical. And when they leave, they sometimes glance back to see the figure at the window. Waving once more, even though they are already far down the road. Local lore has grown around the gas station. Truckers tell stories in hushed tones, warning newcomers not to stop at Lobo after nightfall. Some say he is trapped between life and death, a man waiting for someone to notice him, to acknowledge his presence. Others believe the station itself is haunted, a thin veil between the living world and something else, where time bends and flickering lights are messages rather than malfunctions. Some say he is trapped between life and death, a man waiting for someone to notice him, to acknowledge his presence. Others believe the station itself is haunted, a thin veil between the living world and something else, where time bends and flickering lights are messages rather than malfunctions. Others believe the station itself is haunted, a thin veil between the living world and something else, where time bends and flickering lights are messages rather than malfunctions. Some say he is trapped between life and death, a man waiting for someone to notice him, to acknowledge his presence. Others believe the station itself is haunted, a thin veil between the living world and something else, where time bends and flickering lights are messages rather than malfunctions. Some say he is trapped between life and death, a man waiting for someone to notice him, to acknowledge his presence. Despite the warnings, the station draws curiosity. People come hoping to see the figure, to experience the phenomenon for themselves. They cannot explain what they saw, and yet the memory lingers. A man who waves but never speaks. Lights that vanish when approached. Silence that hums with questions that cannot be answered. The desert around Lobo continues its quiet, indifferent vigil. The gas station sits as a sentinel, a place that exists in memory and in shadow. Where travelers might glimpse the impossible if they watch closely. And the man inside continues to wave, endlessly. His presence a reminder of the fragile boundary between the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknowable. Night after night, the station waits. Travelers pass by, some slowing, some daring to stop. Each time, the lights flicker, the figure waves, and the desert holds its breath. And though he disappears when approached, the story endures, whispered in the wind and carried on the empty highway. A ghostly figure at a gas station in Lobo, forever calling for someone who may never come. Thurber was once a thriving coal town, its streets alive with the rhythm of daily life. Smoke curled from the chimneys of Minersa homes and the distant clatter of tools echoed from the mines. Children played in dusty alleys, their laughter mingling with the whistles and calls of men heading to work. The town had a heartbeat, steady and unyielding, forged from the sweat and determination of its people. Now, Thurber is a shadow of its former self. The buildings stand empty, their walls cracked and worn. Rusted machinery lies scattered among the overgrown grass, silent witnesses to a time when coal dust filled the air and the hum of labor never ceased. The streets are quiet during the day, still and abandoned, but when night falls, the town seems to awaken in a different way. A presence lingers, an echo of the past that refuses to fade. Locals speak of a phenomenon that draws curiosity and unease. Late at night, when the wind sweeps through the empty streets and the moon casts long shadows across crumbling rooftops, the sound of marching boots can be heard. The steps are heavy, deliberate, almost rhythmic, as if an invisible line of men moves together down the main road. They are not seen, yet their presence is felt, as palpable as the cold night air. Those who have experienced it describe the feeling as both eerie and solemn. The boots are not hurried or erratic. They carry a weight of exhaustion, of endless labor, a tireless march toward somewhere beyond the living world. Some say it is the miners returning to the shafts they once worked in, bound to their task even in the absence of life. Others believe it is the town itself remembering, a collective memory encoded in the very ground, replaying the sounds of its past until someone stops to listen. Visitors often speak of a strange sensation when the marching begins. The air grows heavier, charged with an energy that is difficult to explain. Shadows stretch and twist across the ruins, seeming to shift with each measured step. The sound is not just heard, it is felt in the chest, a low vibration that resonates through the bones. The rhythm of the boots is steady, almost hypnotic, carrying with it a sense of discipline, routine, and an unspoken fatigue. The origin of the phenomenon is unclear. Some researchers suggest it may be an auditory illusion, caused by the wind moving through hollow buildings or across the remnants of old machinery. Others argue that it is a form of residual energy, a replay of the town's collective labor that persists long after the people have gone. There are no recordings that fully capture the experience, and those who try to document it with cameras or audio devices often find that the sounds fade when approached, as if the presence knows it is being watched. The stories of the marching boots have become an integral part of Thurber's identity. Locals pass the tales along to visitors, speaking in hushed tones, not out of fear, but out of respect. The phenomenon is seen as a reminder of the town's history, a haunting tribute to the countless men who labored in the mines, whose lives were bound to the rhythm of work, who carried on despite fatigue and danger. The sound of the boots is a voice from the past, persistent and unwavering, speaking to those who are willing to hear it. At times, the march seems endless. Observers report hearing the sound stretch for blocks, then vanish without warning, leaving only silence and a faint memory of movement. The night sky above Thurber is clear and vast, yet under the moonlight, the town feels crowded. Figures may not be visible, but their presence is suggested in every echo, every measured step that travels across empty streets. It is a haunting, yet not malevolent, a reminder that the history of this place is alive in its own way, embedded in the ground, the walls, and the air. The phenomenon has attracted those who seek the unusual, from paranormal enthusiasts to quiet wanderers drawn to forgotten towns. Many arrive with skepticism, only to leave unsettled, aware that Thurber holds secrets that cannot be fully explained. Each step is a testament, a silent acknowledgement of what once was, and a reminder that the past often lingers in places we least expect. Even for those who never witnessed the phenomenon firsthand, the legend of the marching boots adds an aura to Thurber that cannot be ignored. The town's ruins become more than remnants of a bygone era. They are a stage for something enduring, a performance in the quiet of night that speaks of history, hardship, and the resilience of the human spirit. The sound of heavy boots, echoing through empty streets, transforms Thurber into a living memory, a bridge between the past and the present, between the seen and the unseen. As the night deepens and the desert wind moves softly through the broken buildings. Measured steps, heavy with the fatigue of men long gone, echo down the road. They move in unison, marching toward a place that may no longer exist, guided by a rhythm that is both sorrowful and enduring. And in the stillness that follows, the town seems to breathe, alive once again in the footsteps of its past. Reminding those who listen that Thurber will never be entirely silent. The ruins of the old Styles courthouse rise from the quiet town like a monument to time itself. Its walls are worn and cracked, the roof long gone, leaving only skeletal beams to frame the sky above. By day, the building blends into the landscape, stone and dust reflecting the harsh sun. But by night, the courthouse becomes something entirely different, a place where the ordinary gives way to the inexplicable. Visitors who wander near after sunset often speak of a single window that glows red. From a distance, it looks as though a fire burns behind the glass, illuminating the surrounding stone with a warm, flickering light. Yet when they approach, the sensation shifts. The glow remains, but the warmth of flame is absent. The window radiates light, not heat, and the air feels cool against the skin. The effect is mesmerizing. The red glow dances across the broken walls, casting long shadows and transforming the ruins into a place of living color. Every crack, every jagged edge, seems more pronounced in the shifting light. The building itself appears to breathe with an invisible pulse, the stones holding memories of countless years. Those who linger describe another oddity. A faint scent of smoke seems to drift through the air, though no fire exists. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, like a memory of flame lingering long after the fact. The smell does not burn the eyes or throat, but it is unmistakable, entwined with the sensation of heat that never arrives. Inside the courthouse, the emptiness amplifies every sound. Steps echo across the cold stone floor, wind whistles through broken arches. And the distant call of a night bird resonates in the stillness. Yet no matter how carefully one moves, the red glow always draws attention. It is hypnotic, a beacon in the darkness that refuses to be ignored. The window itself is framed by chipped stone and warped wood. The glass, old and weathered, distorts the light into shapes that seem almost alive. Patterns flicker along the walls, like shadows performing a slow, silent dance. Some visitors swear they see faint movements behind the glass, as if Samania or Somthinga is watching from within. Yet when they step closer, the window remains empty, and the interior reveals only cold, abandoned stone. Local legends speak of the courthouse as a place of intense history. It was once the center of the town's justice, a site of trials and deliberation where voices rose in anger and despair. Fires occasionally swept through the building in its active years, leaving behind scars in the walls and memories in the minds of those who witnessed them. Some believe the glowing window is a remnant of those past events, a lingering fragment of a fire that never fully died. The glow has been seen in different ways by different observers. Some describe it as a steady light, constant and unwavering. Others see it flicker, brighter and dimmer in unpredictable rhythms, almost like a heartbeat. The effect is subtle yet powerful, creating a sense of tension and curiosity that draws people in, encouraging them to explore despite the emptiness surrounding them. Travelers who spend time in the ruins often recount a feeling of being watched. The sensation is not frightening in a conventional sense. But it is disquieting, a persistent awareness of presence. Shadows seem to shift at the edges of vision. And every creaking beam or gust of wind carries an echo that seems more deliberate than random. The air inside the courthouse retains a strange quality. Even in the cool night, there is a heaviness, as though the building itself holds on to the memory of every trial and decision that took place within its walls. The red glow of the window emphasizes this feeling, casting the room in an unnatural hue that transforms ordinary stone into something almost alive. Some visitors attempt to capture the phenomenon on camera. Many report that no photograph or video fully replicates what they witnessed. The glow often appears muted or distorted in recordings. The true intensity of the color and movement lost. This discrepancy adds to the mystique of the window, reinforcing the idea that it is not merely a trick of light, but something far more enigmatic. The town of Styles itself is quiet at night. The streets are empty, the air still, yet the courthouse stands as a silent sentinel, holding a secret that defies explanation. The red window has drawn countless curious observers, each leaving with a story that blends history, imagination, and the unexplained. Each leaving with a story that blends history, imagination, and the unexplained. The red window has drawn countless curious observers, each leaving with a story that blends history, imagination, and the unexplained. The glow can be hypnotic. The glow can be hypnotic. It casts long reflections across the ground, touches nearby walls, and seems to extend beyond the window, reaching into the desert night. The glow can be hypnotic. It casts long reflections across the ground, touches nearby walls, and seems to extend beyond the window, reaching into the desert night. The light feels alive, as if responding to those who watch, acknowledging their presence without revealing its source. Some say the burning window is a doorway to the past, a vision of fire and smoke frozen in time. Others believe it is a manifestation of the courthouse itself, an expression of memory or energy tied to events long gone. Whatever the explanation, the effect is undeniable. It captures attention, ignites curiosity, and lingers in the mind long after the viewer has left the ruins behind. As night deepens, the glow continues to burn softly. The surrounding desert remains dark and silent. Yet the courthouse stands out like a beacon. Each flicker seems deliberate, each shadow a fragment of a story unfinished, inviting exploration and reflection. By dawn, the red light fades in the natural brightness of day. The window returns to its ordinary, unremarkable state, leaving only cold stone and silent halls. Yet those who have witnessed the phenomenon know that night will bring it back. The glowing window will ignite again, mysterious and unyielding, a silent fire burning within the ruins of Styles, holding the echoes of the past for anyone willing to watch. The abandoned schoolhouse in Sherwood sits quietly among overgrown grass and wildflowers, a lone structure where time seems to have paused. Its brick walls are faded and worn, windows streaked with years of dust and rain. The roof sags slightly, and the front steps are cracked and uneven, a silent testament to decades of neglect. By day, the building appears still and empty, an ordinary relic of a town long past its bustling years. But as the sun dips below the horizon, the atmosphere shifts, and the schoolhouse begins to take on a presence all its own. Visitors who come near the old building often speak of hearing faint sounds drifting through the air. Soft singing, delicate and melodic, rises from within the walls. The voices carry a warmth and innocence that seems impossible to reconcile with the dusty, empty rooms they seem to occupy. There is no shadow of fear in the sound, only a strange sense of nostalgia, as though the school itself remembers laughter and lessons long since past. The songs vary from gentle lullabies to playful tunes, often echoing the rhythm of children at play. The voices weave together, rising and falling, creating an almost tangible energy within the air. Even when the doors are closed and the windows shuttered, the sound persists, drawing the curious closer. Some visitors describe the experience as peaceful, as if being touched by a memory of joy. Others feel a stirring of wonder. The way one feels when hearing a long-forgotten melody from childhood. Inside the schoolhouse, the rooms are silent to the eye. Desks are covered in layers of dust, papers yellowed and crumbling. Sunlight filters through broken panes, casting uneven light across the floorboards. It is in this quiet, empty setting that the singing seems most extraordinary, appearing to fill spaces that should be hollow. Each note hangs in the air, lingering in corners and around the doorframes, refusing to be silenced by absence. The main hall, once filled with children's laughter and teacherly instruction, now hosts only echoes of its past. Visitors report that as they move through the building, the voices shift, sometimes appearing to come from the classrooms themselves, other times from the hallways. Some say it feels as if the children are moving, invisible and unseen, their energy preserved in the air, replaying a rhythm of life that once existed in the now abandoned school. The legend of the singing school has been shared among locals for generations. Some recount stories of past students who left an indelible mark on the town. Children whose love of learning and music became entwined with the building itself. Others suggest that the sounds are simply memories imprinted on the old structure, carried forward like whispers from the past. Whatever the explanation, the experience is consistent enough to draw attention, leaving those who witness it with an undeniable sense of mystery and awe. Even on the quietest days, the exterior of the school hints at stories within. The playground equipment rusts slowly under the sun, swings swaying gently in the breeze as if guided by invisible hands. The bell tower, long silent, tilts slightly to one side, yet the sense of presence is palpable. Nature has reclaimed much of the land, yet the songs seem to resist to Mia's passage, an audible reminder that some memories endure even as everything else fades. Explorers who enter the building often describe an emotional response unlike anything else. The singing feels welcoming, as though the children themselves are inviting visitors to witness a part of the past. The sound is never frightening, but it carries weight, a reminder that life and joy once flourished in a place now quiet and abandoned. Even seasoned travelers and paranormal enthusiasts are caught off guard by the sincerity and clarity of the voices, leaving them with a sense of wonder rather than dread. The arrangement of the rooms contributes to the phenomenon. Classrooms with broken desks, hallways lined with lockers missing their doors, and small libraries where dust motes float lazily in the light. All seem to act as conduits for the sound. Each note finds a home among the walls, the floorboards, and the ceiling beams, echoing with a quality that suggests a building imbued with memory and emotion. Those who linger often find that the voices feel closer than expected, as if they are surrounding rather than coming from a single source. Some visitors report subtle details that make the experience even more immersive. The air feels warmer or cooler in sudden bursts, and the echoes of footsteps sometimes accompany the singing. None of these occurrences are frightening in the traditional sense. Instead, they reinforce the sense that the schoolhouse holds something extraordinary. A trace of human presence preserved in the form of sound and atmosphere. The town of Sherwood has come to accept the singing school as a unique part of its identity. Residents share stories with newcomers, warning that the experience may be confusing at first, but ultimately leaving a sense of wonder. Researchers, historians, and casual explorers alike are drawn to the building, seeking to witness the phenomenon firsthand. Each encounter is unique, yet consistent in its impression, a joyful, ephemeral presence that transcends the physical decay of the structure. Even in the coldest months, when the wind whips through the broken windows and frost coats the empty steps, the songs persist. They rise and fall, filling the silence with a warmth that contrasts sharply with the starkness of the abandoned school. Visitors report that leaving the building often feels like stepping back from a threshold, as if returning from a brief glimpse into a world preserved by memory and sound. The singing school of Sherwood endures as both a mystery and a testament to the enduring spirit of childhood. It is a place where joy lingers, where history is felt as much as seen, and where the air itself seems to carry echoes of laughter. Those who pass by, or enter the building with courage and curiosity, find themselves connected to a story larger than themselves. The voices continue, playful and persistent, a hauntingly beautiful reminder that even in abandonment, the past can sing. The ruins of Belle Plaine College stand quietly under the wide Texas sky, their walls crumbling, their windows broken, and their hallways echoing only with the wind. Grass grows tall between the stones, swaying like a restless audience to a long-forgotten performance. Behind the remnants of the campus sits an old stone well, worn smooth by years and shadowed by the trees that have crept around it. Locals speak of a girl who appears there as the sun sinks low, painting the landscape in gold and shadow. Her hair is long and dark, cascading over her shoulders, her dress a bright white against the gray stone. She seems to float there, suspended between the earth and something else, a presence both fragile and insistent. Travelers who pass the well at dusk often feel the air change, heavier, cooler, as if the world itself pauses to watch her. Witnesses describe a sudden awareness when she appears, a quiet that presses against the ears and the chest. She does not speak. She does not move in the ways ordinary people do. She simply leans over the edge of the well, gazing down. Watching something unseen. And yet, her presence calls to those nearby, drawing them closer despite a sense of unease that hangs in the air. When people call out to her, hoping to capture her attention or to offer comfort, she falls forward as if drawn by an unseen hand. The moment is brief but striking, and what follows defies explanation. The well, though it appears deep and dark, is dry. There is no water to break her fall, yet she vanishes before reaching the bottom. Some witnesses swear they saw only the ripple of her dress in the air as she disappeared. Others feel a chill, a sensation that runs up the spine and leaves the skin tingling long after she is gone. The origins of the girl are shrouded in mystery. Some say she was a student at the college long ago. Someone who loved the quiet of the campus and the shade of the trees that now surround the well. Others believe she was searching for something lost. A secret hidden in the stones and halls of Belle Plaine. Whatever her story, it has been carried by the wind and the whispers of visitors for decades, shaping the way the ruined campus is remembered and feared. Those who explore the well speak of strange sensations. A sudden draft that seems to rise from the stone. A flicker of movement at the edge of sight. Or the feeling of being watched from within the dark opening. The girl does not linger for long. And yet her presence leaves a mark. Eyes follow the empty space where she once leaned. Thoughts trace the movement of her hair. And the flutter of her white dress. The experience feels real and impossible at the same time. As though the world has shifted just slightly out of alignment. Some who have seen her describe a sense of urgency in her fall, as if she is searching for something in the depth of the well. Others feel a quiet sadness, a patient longing that stretches across time. It is a reminder that some stories refuse to be contained by the boundaries of life and death. Visitors who linger too long often speak of the sensation of being drawn to the well. Compelled to look inside and see what cannot be seen. They feel the weight of history pressing in. The brush of something just beyond the edge of understanding. Yet no matter how close they come, the girl does not return once she has vanished. Her appearances are fleeting, a brief intersection between the living world and something else entirely. Even when the well stands empty, the ruins of Belle Plaine carry her memory. The stones seem to remember the sway of her dress, the fall that never ends, and the quiet patience of her waiting. The wind moves differently through the campus, whispering along broken walls and hollow doorways. Shadows stretch longer in the fading light, and the air itself feels charged with something intangible. In the darkness, the well is a threshold, a point where the ordinary meets the inexplicable. The girl at the edge reminds those who see her that some mysteries cannot be solved, some stories cannot be completed, and some presences refuse to be ignored. She is a ghost of longing and absence, a figure that embodies the tension between what is real and what is imagined. As night falls over Belle Plaine, the ruins grow silent once more. The trees sway gently, the stones cool in the moonlight. The stones cool in the moonlight, and the well waits. It waits for the girl to return, and for anyone who might see her again. Those who pass by at dusk may catch a glimpse of her leaning over the edge. Her dress white against the grey stone. Her hair flowing. And the air filled with the quiet hum of a story that has never ended. The girl at the well remains, patient and unwavering, a presence suspended in time. A warning and an invitation, a reminder that some places hold on to the past. And that some mysteries endure in the shadows, waiting for those who dare to notice. Indianola was once a bustling coastal town, its streets lined with clapboard homes and businesses. Sailors docked their boats along the piers, merchants carried their wares to market. And children ran barefoot along the shoreline, laughing as the waves reached their toes. Life here revolved around the sea, a source of both livelihood and wonder. The town seemed eternal, anchored by the rhythm of tides and the hum of daily life. But the sea is unforgiving. Over time, storms grew stronger, the winds more relentless, and the waters more merciless. Families were forced to flee, leaving behind the homes they had built and the memories they had made. Indianola was abandoned, its streets left to crumble beneath salt and sand, its piers swallowed by the restless waves. Only the faintest traces of the town remain today, scattered across the shoreline, hidden in the driftwood and tangled seaweed. Locals and visitors alike speak of a haunting presence that lingers where the town once thrived. On foggy evenings, when the moon struggles to pierce the low-hanging clouds and the waves crash against the empty shore, a figure can be seen. A woman, soaking wet, her hair plastered to her face, stands at the water's edge. Her clothes cling to her as if the sea itself refuses to release her. She moves slowly, her gaze searching, unyielding, as if drawn by something that cannot be found. Those who have encountered her describe an overwhelming sense of sorrow. A grief so deep that it seems to pull at the very air. She whispers, her voice barely audible over the crashing waves, calling for a child who is not there. The words echo across the empty sands, carrying a weight that lingers long after she has vanished. The sea swirls around her feet, yet she does not step into it. She stands at the boundary between land and water, a figure suspended in grief and memory. Witnesses claim that her presence is fleeting. When approached, she does not retreat or acknowledge the living. Instead, she dissolves into the fog, leaving behind only the sound of waves. And a cold breeze that brushes against the skin. Some say the air feels heavier, charged with sorrow. As if the town itself is mourning with her. Others insist they can smell the brine of the sea. Stronger and more pungent than the ocean itself. Lingering in the moment after she disappears. Stories suggest that the woman may be the mother of a child lost during one of the many storms that ravaged Indianola. In the chaos of rising waters and violent winds, families were torn apart, and some children were never seen again. The woman's grief became intertwined with the land and the sea, binding her spirit to the shoreline where she waited, endlessly searching. Over generations, her image has become more vivid, shaped by the tales of those who claim to have seen her and by the foggy atmosphere that blankets the ruins of the town. The shoreline around Indianola carries its own quiet mystery. Driftwood lies scattered like the remnants of a forgotten life. The sand constantly shifting beneath the pull of the tides. Abandoned piers jut from the water at odd angles. Their beams warped and slick from decades of neglect. It is in this liminal space that the drowned mother appears. A reminder of what was lost and a warning of the sea's relentless power. The fog clings to the ground. The waves whisper against the remnants of the past. And the air is thick with an almost tangible melancholy. Those who venture to the area often describe a sense of being watched, though nothing is visible. The wind carries distant, unintelligible sounds, as if voices from long ago rise briefly to the surface before fading into the night. Some have felt the brush of a damp presence, a sensation that is neither wind nor cold, but something more personal, almost human. It is in these moments that the legend of the drowned mother feels most alive, a bridge between history and the spectral world. Despite the fear it can inspire, the story of the drowned mother is not one of anger or malice. It is a story of loss and longing, a grief so powerful that it refuses to leave even after death. People who have seen her often report a strange sense of reverence, a quiet empathy for a spirit trapped in endless mourning. The waves continue to lap the shore, relentless and unchanging, yet she remains, bound by memory and devotion. A figure of sorrow against the vast expanse of the Gulf. The legend has endured because it is intertwined with the history of Indianola itself. The storms that claimed the town are long past, yet the spirit of the drowned mother serves as a living memory of those events. She embodies the human cost of Naturia's fury, the fragility of life on the edge of the sea, and the enduring power of love and grief. Even for those who never see her, the story is a reminder that some losses cannot be measured in time, and some presences cannot be erased. The story is a reminder that some losses cannot be measured in time, and some presences cannot be erased. At night, when the fog rolls in and the shoreline is quiet except for the sound of the waves, the drowned mother can appear once again. She moves with purpose, her gaze fixed on the horizon, searching for a child who has been gone for decades. And when she vanishes into the mist, it is not just a disappearance. That the past lives on. That memories can take shape and form. And that some spirits remain tied to the world long after it has forgotten them. Indianola stands in ruin, a ghost town reclaimed by water and time, yet it is not entirely silent. In the quiet hours of night, on the edge of the Gulf, the drowned mother waits. She whispers, she searches, she mourns. She is a living echo of the town's history, a presence that reminds all who encounter her that loss is never truly gone, and that love and grief can persist beyond life itself. When the waters of Lake Buchanan recede, the remnants of Bluffton emerge from beneath the surface. Foundations of old buildings, fragments of walls, and broken streets appear, reminders of a town swallowed by the lake decades ago. By day, the ruins are quiet and still, a ghostly imprint of the past. But when evening falls and the wind whispers across the water, strange occurrences begin to stir. Fishermen who visit the lake at dusk speak of a figure moving across the exposed lakebed. They describe a solitary walker, moving with a deliberate pace, leaving footprints in the wet mud. The figure appears human at first, yet something about its presence feels out of place, as though it belongs to another time. The footprints are often the first evidence. Those who follow them report the unsettling feeling that the walker senses their approach, disappearing from sight before they can get close. The lake itself seems to participate in the phenomenon. The water reflects the sky in a glassy calm, yet there are moments when ripples appear without wind. Shadows stretch across the shallow lakebed, shifting unnaturally with the fading light. Sounds carry across the water, the soft slap of a fish breaking the surface or the distant call of a bird amplifying the eerie atmosphere. Those who have witnessed the walker speak of a sense of timelessness. The figure moves as if it is part of the town's history, walking streets that no longer exist, treading paths erased by decades underwater. There is no malice in its motion, only a quiet persistence, an echo of a life that once thrived along the banks of the lake. The ruins of Bluffton are scattered across a wide area. Foundations of homes lie in shallow depressions. Old brick chimneys jut out of the mud. and fragments of wooden structures poke through the sand. The walker appears to navigate this terrain with ease, stepping over obstacles and moving across areas where the water has long since receded. Fishermen describe an almost hypnotic effect as they watch. The figure seems to blend with the environment, its movements graceful and steady. Sometimes it pauses, turning as if surveying the remnants of the town, then continues onward, leaving the observer with a lingering sense of wonder and unease. The origin of the walker remains a mystery. Some say it is the spirit of a former resident, forever tied to the town they called home. Others believe it is a manifestation of the town's memory, an imprint left on the landscape that emerges when conditions align. Whatever the explanation, the effect is the same: a quiet, persistent presence that cannot be ignored. Visitors often describe a shift in the air when the figure appears. The combination of visual and sensory cues creates an atmosphere thick with anticipation. The footprints themselves offer tantalizing clues. They are sometimes fresh, the mud still soft and yielding. Yet at other times they appear slightly dried, as if the walker has been retracing a path walked many times before. Attempts to approach or follow the figure often result in confusion. It seems to vanish without warning, leaving only the trail as evidence of its presence. Observers describe the walker as elusive, yet strangely familiar. Its form is human, but its actions suggest a connection to a time when Bluffton was alive. The figure navigates streets that no longer exist, crosses areas submerged for decades, and yet seems perfectly at ease. There is a quiet dignity in its movements, a reminder of the lives and stories that were interrupted when the town was flooded. The lake itself remains a central character in the story. Its waters rise and fall with the seasons, revealing the town in fragments that inspire awe and curiosity. On quiet evenings, the wind carries the soft lapping of water against exposed walls, mingling with distant bird calls and the occasional rustle of reeds. Within this setting, the walker emerges as both a guide and a witness to a history submerged and partially forgotten. There is no fear associated with the phenomenon, only fascination. Those who see the walker often report a sense of connection to the past. A fleeting glimpse of life as it once was. It is a reminder that even when a town disappears beneath water, its memory can persist in unexpected ways. The walker has become part of the folklore surrounding Bluffton. Stories are passed from fishermen to visitors, each retelling adding subtle variations, but always keeping the essence intact. The figure, the footprints, and the ephemeral presence over the lake bed are constants, a shared experience that continues to captivate those who witness it. Nightfall brings a different dimension to the ruins. The moon reflects off the shallow waters, casting a silver light over exposed foundations. The walker may appear at any moment, its movements quiet against the vast, still lakebed. Observers speak of holding their breath as they watch, aware that the figure is aware of them, yet untouchable. By sunrise, the walker vanishes along with the fading shadows. The footprints may remain, slowly drying in the morning sun. The ruins sink back into the landscape, waiting for the lake to recede once more and for the story to continue. Bluffton's Lake Walker is more than a legend. It is a reminder that history leaves traces in the world, that memories persist in unexpected forms, and that even submerged towns can rise again, in ways that capture the imagination. A quiet echo of the lives that once thrived along the shores of Lake Buchanan. For those who witness it, the experience is haunting, beautiful, and unforgettable. A quiet echo of the lives that once thrived along the shores of Lake Buchanan. Bluffton's Lake Walker is more than a legend. Barksdale sits quietly in a remote stretch of wilderness, a place where trees grow thick and the trails wind unpredictably through shadowed groves. The air carries a mixture of pine, damp earth, and the faint scent of smoke that seems out of place in a forest untouched for years. Hikers who traverse these paths often speak of a strange feeling, as if the woods themselves are watching and waiting, holding on to secrets that refuse to be revealed. Among these stories, the tale of the ghost campfire stands out, a phenomenon that has drawn both curiosity and unease. Travelers report seeing a warm glow flickering through the trees at twilight. The flames crackle and dance, casting shadows that sway against nearby trunks and rocks. Alongside the fire, voices rise, soft laughter and casual conversation, as if a group of campers were gathered just beyond sight. The sound is lively and human, familiar and inviting, yet impossible to trace. Those who approach the glow often describe a sense of anticipation, a pull that encourages them to investigate. The light reflects off the leaves, painting the forest floor with shifting patterns of amber and gold. The sound of the fire complements the scene perfectly, a rhythmic crackle underpinned by cheerful voices. It is a vision of camaraderie and warmth, a scene hikers imagine when picturing a safe and happy campsite deep in the wilderness. Yet when the trail narrows and the hikers step closer, the illusion evaporates. The light fades, the laughter ceases, and the crackling sounds disappear. What remains are cold rocks arranged in a circle, remnants of a fire that never truly existed. The ground is undisturbed, as though no one has visited for years. The silence that follows is profound, the kind that fills the lungs and settles heavily in the chest. The contrast between expectation and reality is disorienting, leaving a lingering sense of mystery. The legend of the ghost campfire has been passed down among those who spend time in the woods. Some believe it is the echo of campers from decades past, spirits who continue their gatherings long after their physical presence has disappeared. Others suggest it is the forest itself, weaving sounds and lights into an intricate illusion, preserving memories of human connection amid the isolation. The phenomenon has no predictable pattern, appearing at different times and in varying forms, yet always consistent in its central experience. The illusion of warmth and life in a place that is silent and empty. Hikers who witness the campfire often report more than just visual or auditory illusions. The air near the spot carries a subtle warmth, a sensation that contrasts sharply with the cool forest night. Some describe feeling the faint vibration of the fire beneath their feet, a reminder of the presence that seems almost tangible. Yet when they bend down to investigate, there is nothing. The ground is cold and solid, the rocks unchanged. It is a paradox that challenges the senses, blending reality with an ephemeral experience. The surrounding landscape enhances the mystery. Trees stretch high into the sky, their branches forming intricate patterns that filter moonlight into thin, shifting beams. Shadows elongate and twist with the flickering glow, giving depth and movement to a scene that is otherwise motionless. The forest floor is uneven, dotted with moss-covered stones and fallen branches, adding texture to the ethereal vision. Every element conspires to make the campfire seem real, until it vanishes with an almost playful suddenness. Those who study Barksdale report that the site of the ghost campfire is not fixed. Sometimes the glow appears near an old clearing. Other times, it flickers at the edge of a cliff or beside a cluster of rocks. The voices shift as well, rising in pitch or intensity, as though the invisible campers are adjusting to unseen circumstances. Despite these variations, the pattern remains the same. The campfire and its companions are always just out of reach, teasing observers with warmth and life that cannot be touched. Local guides tell stories of hikers who followed the sounds late into the night. Some claim to have seen figures moving between the trees, fleeting shapes outlined by the firelight. Others recount hearing the soft pop of embers or the clinking of imagined utensils, sensations that evoke the familiarity of a communal meal, yet leave no physical evidence behind. The forest seems to suspend disbelief, creating experiences that feel entirely real while remaining intangible. The phenomenon affects people differently. Some feel comforted, as though the ghostly gathering is a reminder of human connection even in isolation. Others feel an edge of unease, a reminder of how easily the senses can be deceived. In every case, the experience lingers. Hikers carry the memory of the light and sound with them, replaying it in their minds long after they have left the forest. The ghost campfire becomes part of their journey, a chapter that exists between reality and imagination. Even in daylight, traces of the forest's history are evident. The clearing where the fire appears is scattered with rocks and fallen branches, evidence of past campers or hikers. Birds flit from branch to branch, and wind stirs the leaves with gentle whispers. Yet the magic of the ghost campfire only manifests at certain hours, under the cover of dusk or night, when the human mind is both alert and receptive to the extraordinary. The timing adds to the sense of mystery, reinforcing the idea that this is a place where the ordinary and the impossible coexist. The ghost campfire of Barksdale has become a symbol of the forest's enduring presence. It is a reminder that even in abandoned or overlooked places, traces of life and memory can persist. The phenomenon is never threatening, but it carries a quiet power, an invitation to observe and wonder. It draws hikers into a connection with the past, a shared human experience imagined anew in the stillness of the woods. A shared human experience imagined anew in the stillness of the woods. As night deepens and the forest grows darker, the ghost campfire may appear again, a flickering light, accompanied by laughter and crackling flames that vanish before the observer can reach them. Cold rocks remain, silent witnesses to an experience that defies explanation. For those who encounter it, the memory stays, an indelible impression of warmth, sound, and wonder. Suspended in the heart of Barksdale, that transcends time. The plains around Estacado stretch wide and flat, bathed in the golden light of sunset and fading into shadow as night falls. Grasses ripple like oceans in the wind, and the horizon seems endless, a vast expanse where time itself feels suspended. It is a land that carries memory in every ridge and hollow, a place where the past lingers in the air and the silence speaks as loudly as any voice. When darkness falls, travelers speak of a strange phenomenon on these open fields. Ghostly horses appear, galloping across the plains with a power and grace that seems almost unnatural. Their hooves kick up clouds of dust that shimmer in the moonlight, and their breath drifts like fog through the cool night air. These are no ordinary horses, and yet they are undeniably alive in the perception of those who witness them. What makes the sight truly haunting is the absence of riders. The horses move as if guided by some unseen force, swift and purposeful. Yet no figure sits upon their backs. They are empty, carrying only the echo of those who once rode them. The memory of lives long gone. Witnesses often describe a shiver running through the air. A sensation that the past has stepped forward to meet the present, leaving those who watch with awe and unease. Stories tell of the early settlers and cowboys who once worked these lands. They rode these horses across the same fields, driving cattle, scouting the horizon, and carrying messages from town to town. Some accounts speak of tragic events, of riders lost to the harshness of the plains, storms that appeared suddenly, and accidents that left their names in memory alone. These stories have traveled through generations, whispered in the wind that sweeps across the open land. Observers describe the horses as pale and glowing in the moonlight, their manes streaming behind them like smoke caught in a gentle breeze. The sound of hooves striking the hard earth echoes through the night, a rhythm that is both exhilarating and eerie. Occasionally, the thunder of their gallop seems to come from all directions at once, as though the plains themselves are alive with the ghosts of those who once called it home. The emptiness of the riders is what lingers most in memory. Travelers speak of trying to imagine a person atop the horse, only to feel a sudden void, a sense that something vital has been erased by time. It is a quiet reminder of lives interrupted, of journeys that were never completed, and of the endurance of memory long after the people have vanished. The horses are messengers of history. moving through the night to carry stories the land refuses to forget. Some witnesses report subtle changes in the environment when the horses appear. The air grows colder, the wind shifts in unusual patterns, and shadows stretch longer than they should. At times, the dust raised by the galloping animals seems to form shapes that vanish before they can be fully seen. It is a presence both physical and intangible, a bridge between the living world and the realm of memory and legend. Riders of the plains are said to appear most often on nights when the moon is high and the stars shine brightly. Their movements are precise, almost choreographed, like a ritual repeated for decades. Some claim to hear faint whinnies, soft and melancholy, as if the horses are calling out to their lost riders. Others feel a subtle vibration underfoot, a heartbeat that echoes the rhythm of their gallop, a reminder that the plains themselves remember every step taken across their expanse. The phenomenon has become part of local lore, a story passed from one generation to the next. Farmers and ranchers speak of it with respect, not fear, acknowledging that the land holds more than what the eye can see. Tourists are drawn by curiosity, hoping to glimpse the ghostly steeds, and those who do often describe the experience as life-changing, a moment that defies explanation yet feels undeniably real. In the quiet moments, when the plains are still and the horizon is a thin line between earth and sky, the riders appear. Gallop across the fields. Swift and silent. No one can claim to understand why they return night after night. Why the horses carry the memory of absent riders. Or what it is they hope to communicate. What remains certain is that the plains of Estacado are alive with echoes. The ghostly horses remind anyone who watches that the past is never truly gone. The riders of the plains move endlessly across the land, carrying the stories of those who once lived and worked here, forever galloping between memory and reality. In the sound of hooves, and in the cold breath of the night air. The past is never truly gone. Never resting, and never forgotten. The plains of Estacado are alive with echoes. Texan was once alive with the hum of industry, a small town shaped by the rhythm of oil fields and the labor of men who worked from sunrise to sunset. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, the horizon a flat line broken only by the silhouettes of pumps and derricks. Workers moved methodically among the rigs, lanterns in hand, casting flickering light against the dusty ground and metal structures. Life here was measured in shifts, in routines, and in the steady glow of lamps that guided men through the night. Today, the town is quiet, its oil fields abandoned and silent. The rigs stand like sentinels, rusted and worn, their skeletal forms etched against the evening sky. Few venture out after dark, yet those who do sometimes witness something extraordinary. A lantern floats through the deserted fields, its light small but unmistakable. It moves along the same path that workers once followed, tracing the old routes with a slow, deliberate pace. Observers describe it as steady, almost purposeful, as if it remembers the hands that carried it long ago. The Lantern Man, as he has come to be known, appears without warning. One moment the field is dark and still, the next a warm glow drifts through the air, hovering above the cracked earth. It sometimes stops, lingering at intersections or along the path of a long-forgotten rig, as if waiting for someone who never arrives. Then, as silently as it came, it moves on, following the route again, endless and unchanging, a solitary presence in a land that time has nearly forgotten. Those who have seen the lantern often speak of a strange mixture of awe and unease. There is no figure carrying it, no discernible source, only the soft, golden glow. And the sense that it moves with intent. The air feels heavier when it passes, as if the presence carries a weight beyond its physical form. A memory of labor, duty, and perhaps loneliness. The origins of the Lantern Man are unclear. Some suggest that he is the spirit of a worker who perished in the fields long ago, doomed to retrace his nightly rounds for eternity. Others believe it is a residual echo, a repetition of a routine so ingrained. that it has left a permanent imprint on the land. There is no evidence to confirm either theory. And the mystery only adds to the legend. Every sighting reinforces the sense that the oil fields are more than abandoned structures. There is no evidence to confirm either theory. And the mystery only adds to the legend. Every sighting reinforces the sense that the oil fields are more than abandoned structures. They are a place where the past lingers, where memory and presence intersect in subtle and haunting ways. Observers report that the lanterna's movement is remarkably consistent. It drifts along the same path night after night, slow and steady, as if bound to a schedule set decades ago. Some have attempted to follow it, to discover the source or catch a glimpse of what lies behind the glow. But the lantern always stays just beyond reach. When approached, it seems to pull away gently, preserving the illusion of distance. Never allowing the observer to fully bridge the gap between the present and whatever echoes of the past it represents. The atmosphere around the Texan oil fields enhances the mystery. At dusk, the sky is painted with shades of orange and red, fading into dark blue and black as night falls. The wind whispers through the abandoned rigs, carrying with it the faint scent of oil and dust. Silence dominates the land, broken only by the occasional creak of metal or the distant call of a nocturnal animal. In this environment, the lantern man's glow becomes even more pronounced, a solitary light against the darkness, guiding, watching, and endlessly repeating its route. Some theorists argue that the lantern is a natural phenomenon, perhaps a reflection or optical illusion caused by the angle of light and mist in the air. Others insist that it is something else entirely, a presence tied to the history of the workers, a manifestation of the human imprint on the land. For those who have witnessed it firsthand, explanation matters little. The experience is immediate and visceral, a moment suspended between curiosity and unease, between the living world and something just beyond perception. Despite the mystery, the Lantern Man has become a part of Texona's identity. Stories of sightings are shared quietly among locals and visitors, passed down through generations as a reminder of the town's history and the men who labored in the oil fields. Some come to the field specifically to witness it, standing at the edge of the desert as night falls, waiting for the faint glow to appear and trace its timeless route. Others stumble upon it unexpectedly, their footsteps halting as the light drifts past, carrying with it a presence both gentle and haunting. The legend endures because it is simple and compelling. A single lantern, floating through abandoned oil fields, retracing the path of workers long gone. Slow, steady, and patient. A symbol of duty that transcends time, and of solitude that refuses to fade. That even in places left behind, the memory of human effort persists. That even when the world moves on, echoes of the past can remain vivid, insistent, and strangely beautiful. On clear nights, when the moon casts its pale light across the desert, the Lantern Man appears again. The golden glow drifts between rusted rigs and empty roads, pausing briefly as if to observe, then continuing along the path it has known for decades. Observers hold their breath, captivated by the sight, aware that they are witnessing something beyond explanation. And as it disappears into the darkness, leaving only the whisper of wind and the faint impression of movement, the legend endures, a testament to memory, persistence, and the quiet, haunting beauty of Texan's abandoned fields. The town of Barbie lies mostly in ruins, its streets empty and overgrown, the remnants of buildings weathered by time and wind. Among the few structures still standing, one house rises alone, its paint faded and peeling, its windows darkened with dust and age. By day, it seems silent and still, a forgotten relic of a town long gone. But by night, the air around it carries a sound that draws attention, curiosity, and unease. People who pass nearby after dusk report hearing a baby crying. At first, the sound is soft, almost distant, like the wind carrying a faint echo across the empty streets. Then it grows louder, more insistent, filling the air around the house with a sound that seems too real to ignore. It is a voice without source, a wail that pierces the quiet and makes the heart quicken. The house itself is unremarkable in structure, a simple frame building with a porch that leans slightly to one side. Its windows are covered in layers of grime, and the doors hang slightly crooked on rusted hinges. Yet from within, the sound of the crying seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It does not shift when a listener moves, but stays constant, as though it is bound to the house itself. Locals have long shared stories of the crying. Some suggest it is the echo of a child who once lived there. Others believe it is the sound of the town itself, mourning its own abandonment, and the lives that disappeared when Barbie fell into ruin. No one knows for sure, but the sensation of hearing the cry is enough to make the ordinary seem strange and heavy with memory. The air around the house feels different. Even on warm nights, a chill often settles close to the ground, creeping up the legs of those who approach. Occasionally, faint shadows appear behind the curtains, moving as though something or something is passing within. Yet the house has been empty for decades, untouched by living hands, and any footprints in the surrounding dirt are erased by time and wind. Visitors report a mixture of fascination and apprehension. The crying does not sound threatening, yet it stirs a deep emotional response. It is a call, a reminder of human fragility and the passage of time. The sound rises and falls in intensity, a rhythm that suggests need, longing, and persistence, and listeners often find themselves standing still, unsure whether to step closer or retreat. The porch creaks under the slightest weight, as if reacting to invisible footsteps. Windows that have long been sealed sometimes seem to capture glimmers of reflected light, creating illusions of movement within. The house appears to breathe in subtle ways, shadows stretching and compressing across the walls as if adjusting to the rhythm of the crying. The town of Barbie itself adds to the atmosphere. Streets that once bustled with activity are now covered in weeds and cracked pavement. Wooden fences sag, and the occasional rusted sign sways gently in the wind. The environment feels suspended in time, a backdrop for the lone house whose sound punctuates the quiet with a reminder that not all memory fades with abandonment. Many who have approached the house speak of a strange sense of companionship, as if the cry connects them to a story that is larger than the building itself. It is not sorrowful in the conventional sense, but it carries weight. A resonance of life once lived and presence once known. The emotional pull is subtle but powerful, drawing attention to the human history embedded in the walls and the air of the structure. The origin of the crying remains unknown. There are no records of a child left behind. No documented tragedy specific to the house that would explain the phenomenon. Yet each report is consistent in describing the sound, its volume, and its persistence. The mystery becomes part of the experience, encouraging contemplation of the unseen and the unexplainable. On nights with a full moon, the effect is magnified. The pale light illuminates the house and the surrounding ruins, casting long, distorted shadows across the ground. The crying resonates against the empty streets, carrying farther than it does under clouded skies. Observers describe the sensation as both haunting and beautiful. A sound that evokes empathy and curiosity in equal measure. Some who linger report additional sensations. A subtle movement of air, faint impressions on the dusty floor that vanish when examined, and the soft creaking of boards that have not been walked on for decades. These small details amplify the presence of the sound, creating the impression that the house itself is alive, aware, and responding to the attention it receives. The crying stops and starts without pattern. There are moments of silence when the night seems utterly still, followed by sudden rises in volume that startle those listening. It is as though the house communicates in rhythms beyond understanding, a language of presence rather than words. tied to memory and persistence rather than living intent. By morning, the house reverts to its quiet state. The air warms, the wind dies down, and the sounds of the dia birds, rustling leaves, distant roadsa. Yet the memory remains for anyone who listened through the night. The experience lingers in thought, echoing long after the house itself falls back into stillness. The crying baby house of Barbie is a reminder of how places hold on to history, emotion, and memory. It illustrates how a building can become a vessel for stories that never truly end. A physical and auditory bridge between past and present. For those who encounter it, the experience is unforgettable. A quiet encounter with a presence that exists just beyond understanding. Though decades have passed and the town is largely gone, the lone house stands as a sentinel. It waits for nightfall for the moon to rise, and for someone to pause long enough to hear the crying. And when that happens, the house fulfills its silent purpose, carrying the sound of life that refuses to be forgotten. Echoing across the ruins of Barbie long into the quiet desert night. Outside the small town of Wilcox, the railroad tracks lie broken and overgrown, their iron rails rusted and twisted. Grass and weeds push through the ties, reclaiming the path that once carried trains through the valley. The tracks end abruptly, cut off by nature and time, a reminder of the routes that no longer connect distant towns. Yet when darkness falls, the landscape transforms. Late at night, travelers and locals alike report hearing a sound that should not exist here. A train whistle cuts through the valley, loud and piercing, carrying a tone that is at once mournful and commanding. The whistle echoes off the hills, bouncing between trees and cliffs, filling the night air with a sound both familiar and impossible. Those who hear it often pause, hearts quickening, sensing the presence of a locomotive long gone from these abandoned rails. The sound is not fleeting. It rises, lingers, and then fades slowly into the distance, creating the illusion that a train has passed through, yet the tracks remain empty. Sometimes the ground beneath feet and boots vibrates slightly, as if the steel wheels are rolling over the ties, yet when observers scan the horizon, there is nothing to see. The phenomenon leaves a sense of awe and unease, as if the land itself remembers what once was. Stories of the phantom train have persisted for generations. Residents claim that long ago, Wilcox thrived around the railroad. Steam engines and freight trains carried goods and people, connecting the town to the wider world. When the tracks were abandoned and the engines stopped running, the sound of trains seemed to vanish forever. Yet, the echoes have returned in a spectral form. Witnesses describe the experience in vivid detail. The whistle often begins softly, distant in the valley, growing louder as though a train approaches from nowhere. Shadows of hills and trees shift in the moonlight, and the wind carries a faint vibration that brushes against the skin. The sound evokes a sense of longing, a reminder of the bustling days of the past, the comings and goings that once defined Wilcox. The comings and goings that once defined Wilcox. Some who have ventured onto the old tracks report hearing more than the whistle. The rhythmic clatter of wheels over rails. The low rumble of a moving engine. And even the hiss of steam have been described. Each sound appears for only moments before vanishing, leaving only the empty rails and the still night. Sometimes multiple times in a single night, sometimes not at all. Locals have learned to respect the sound, approaching the phenomenon with curiosity rather than fear. Hikers and photographers drawn to the valley describe a surreal experience, standing on the empty rails. Standing on the empty rails as the air vibrates and the whistle fills the space around them. The whistle fills the space around them. The juxtaposition of emptiness and presence creates an atmosphere charged with mystery, a bridge between what was and what now exists only in memory. The surrounding valley enhances the effect. Trees and cliffs create natural acoustics, allowing the whistle to travel and echo in ways that seem impossible. Moonlight casts long shadows across the tracks, giving the landscape an otherworldly appearance. Even the rusted rails reflect the glow of starlight, adding to the sense that something might appear at any moment. All elements combine to make the phantom train experience immersive and unforgettable. The phenomenon has attracted attention from researchers and enthusiasts. Those studying abandoned railways note the consistency of reports, the exacting description of sounds, and the emotional impact on witnesses. Skeptics may attribute it to natural echoes or human imagination, yet countless consistent accounts suggest something more. An echo of history imprinted on the land itself. Some visitors report subtle additional effects. A cool breeze sweeps unexpectedly across the valley as the whistle sounds. Or the scent of smoke and oil hangs briefly in the air, faint yet recognizable. These sensations heighten the realism of the encounter, making the absence of the train itself even more striking. People leave with a mixture of wonder and contemplation, aware that they have glimpsed a fragment of the past preserved in the present. The phantom train is more than a curiosity, it is a testament to memory and history. Wilcox may have been left behind by modern transportation, but the sound of locomotives refuses to be silenced. The ghostly whistle connects the valley to a time when steam and steel were lifelines, when the arrival of a train meant news, trade, and connection to the world beyond the hills. Its continued presence reminds visitors of the endurance of experience, the lingering power of human activity etched into place. As night deepens, the valley grows quiet once more. The whistle fades, the vibrations stop, and the tracks remain as they have for decades, still and rusted. Yet those who have heard the phantom train carry it with them, replaying the sound in memory, listening for it in imagination. The empty rails of Wilcox are more than relics, they are conduits for a story that continues to unfold, a melody of steel and steam that echoes through time. The ghost train of Wilcox endures as a symbol of connection between past and present. A reminder that even in places abandoned and silent, traces of life and movement can persist. Teaches that memory is not bound by physical presence, and that history can speak to those willing to listen. When the night is still and the valley holds its breath, the whistle calls out once again. Long and lonely, vibrating through the air. And reminding all who hear it that the tracks may be broken, but the journey continues in spirit. The town of Langtree rests quietly along the banks of the Rio Grande, where the sun dips low over dusty streets. Where the horizon stretches endlessly. Buildings lean slightly with age, their wooden facades bleached by decades of sun and wind. Shadows stretch long as evening falls, and the air takes on a golden, almost otherworldly glow. It is here, in the fading light, that stories of a dark figure on a wooden bench have persisted for generations. Witnesses say the figure appears at sunset, sitting perfectly still, as if carved from shadow. A tall hat rests upon a head bowed slightly, and a long coat hangs in folds that ripple with the faintest movement of the breeze. The figure does not shift, does not speak, and seems to observe the town with a silent authority that is both compelling and unnerving. Those who have seen it describe a presence that feels alive yet unreachable, a bridge between the living town and the memories it holds. Locals whisper that the figure resembles a judge who once ruled the town, a man whose reputation for fairness and stern justice left a lasting mark on Langtree. He was known for his sharp gaze, his calm demeanor, and the ability to command attention without raising his voice. Though he has long since passed, witnesses say the figure carries the weight of his authority, sitting quietly as though ensuring that the town remains in order even from beyond the grave. Travelers first notice the bench because of the way the light seems to gather around it, a warm glow that contrasts with the encroaching shadows. At first, the figure can appear almost ordinary from a distance, a man taking a moment of rest after a long day. But as they approach, the stillness becomes uncanny. The figure does not move, does not react, and seems to watch with eyes that are both familiar and distant. When observers blink or look away for just a moment, the figure vanishes. There is no sound, no trace of movement, only the bench left behind. Locals claim that the wood feels warm long after the figure has disappeared, as though it had just been occupied. The sensation is fleeting yet unmistakable, leaving those who witness it with a sense of having touched something beyond ordinary understanding. Some accounts describe subtle changes in the environment when the figure appears. The air grows cooler, carrying the scent of dust and leather. A soft breeze brushes against the skin, though the surrounding trees remain still. Shadows deepen and lengthen, creating an atmosphere where time feels slowed and the ordinary world feels suspended. The bench itself seems to hum with energy, a silent acknowledgement of the presence that once sat upon it. Those who linger report a feeling of being watched, not in a threatening way, but with the weight of observation that demands attention. It is a quiet, firm presence, a reminder of a life that once shaped the town. People passing by often sense the figure's eyes following them, even after it has disappeared. It is as though the memory of the judge is embedded into the fabric of the town, waiting for the right moment to appear, to remind the living of the past they carry with them. The figure is rarely seen during the heat of the day. Travelers describe a stillness that settles over the street. A pause in the rhythm of life where even the wind seems to hold its breath. The dark figure sits unmoving, a sentinel at the edge of memory. A presence caught between what was and what remains. Stories of encounters with the figure are passed down quietly, shared over dinner tables or whispered along dusty sidewalks. Some say that those who have lingered too long felt a strange compulsion to straighten up, to behave as if under scrutiny, as though the judge's sense of order extended beyond life. Others speak of a sense of calm, a reassurance that the town is being watched over, even when no one else is present. Despite the mystery, the figure is not threatening. It does not speak, it does not move aggressively, and it does not demand attention beyond what is freely given. Its presence is a quiet reminder, a link to the history of Langtree and the people who once walked its streets. The bench becomes a point of connection, a place where past and present meet for the briefest of moments. As the sun sinks lower and the sky deepens into twilight, the figure fades, the long coat and tall hat vanish. The bench remains still, warm from the unseen presence. The town returns to its quiet rhythm, streets bathed in the soft glow of the fading light, carrying with them the memory of a watching judge who never truly left. At Langtree, the past and present exist side by side, held together by stories, shadows, and the quiet persistence of memory. The dark figure on the wooden bench serves as a reminder that history is never entirely gone, and that some presences remain, watching over the town, guiding it silently, and waiting patiently to be noticed again. Duel is a quiet town, its streets lined with empty lots and abandoned homes that speak of a past long gone. Among the remnants of this fading settlement stands a house unlike any other. Its paint is chipped, the roof sagging, and the windows clouded with years of dust. By day, it appears forgotten, a relic of ordinary decay. But when night falls, one window begins to glow, as if lit from within by a hidden source. Those who have passed by say the glow is faint at first, a soft amber that cuts through the darkness. Then, a figure becomes visible behind the glass. A man stands there, still, silent, and seemingly watching the world outside. His features are vague at first, hidden in shadow. But over time his presence becomes unmistakable. He does not move, and yet his gaze feels alive, as though he knows when someone is near. Observers report a strange compulsion when they notice him. The longer they stare, the more aware they become of his subtle movements. He tilts his head ever so slightly, the gesture slow and deliberate. Then, as if testing the observer, his smile begins to spread across his face. It is not a friendly smile. It is cold, calculated, unsettling, leaving a lingering sense of discomfort in the air. Those who see it describe a sudden chill that travels down the spine, a moment where time itself seems to hesitate. The house has no lights, no activity, yet the glow persists. Witnesses often return the following night, compelled by curiosity or disbelief. They find that he is closer to the glass, his presence more pronounced, as if aware of their return. The illusion of distance disappears, replaced by the sense that he is moving in increments, gradually bridging the gap between the safety of the outside world and the threshold of the house. This slow progression adds to the fear, as it feels inevitable and relentless, a quiet march of the unknown. Locals share tales of those who have tried to confront him directly. They approach the window, calling out or knocking on the frame, only to receive no response beyond that frozen, observing smile. Some report that when the figure retreats slightly, it is to an angle that seems impossible, defying the layout of the interior. Others insist they have seen him vanish entirely, only to reappear moments later in the same place, unchanged and waiting. The consistency of his presence has made the house infamous in Duel, a place where people tread lightly after dark. The origins of the man in the window remain a mystery. Some theorize he is the spirit of a former resident, bound to the house by events long forgotten. Others suggest that the figure may be an echo, a manifestation of collective memory or fear that the building has absorbed over decades. No records indicate who he might have been or why he lingers, and the lack of answers only heightens the intrigue. Every night he reappears, repeating the same ritual, a sentinel trapped in an endless loop. The atmosphere surrounding the house is uniquely oppressive. Even on warm nights, the air near it feels colder, heavier, as if charged with an shadows around the window stretch unnaturally, merging with the glowing figure to create an effect that is disorienting and unnerving. Small sounds, like the scrape of a branch against a wall or the faint creak of wood, take on amplified significance, each one reinforcing the sense that the house. Many visitors describe a growing tension as they linger. The longer they watch, the more real the figure becomes. And the more the mind begins to fill in details, imagining eyes that follow. Movements just beyond the edge of perception. And the slow progression of the figure toward them. The house, though static and abandoned, feels dynamic, reacting to the presence of those who dare to look. The glow from the window is not merely light. It is attention, a focus that draws in the living while maintaining a distance that cannot be breached. The legend of the man in the window has grown with each sighting. Stories circulate in hushed tones, passed along by those who have glimpsed him. Some come seeking proof, cameras or recording devices in hand. Yet the figure remains elusive. The glow appears to respond only to human attention. Vanishing when pursued too directly, retreating when examined. Only to return with the same eerie patience the next night. Despite the fear it evokes, the house has become a symbol of Dolia's history and the mysteries that linger at its edges. The man in the window embodies this persistence, a sentinel of the past and a challenge to those who enter his view. Each night, he repeats the same ritual, an unbroken cycle of watching, waiting, and advancing slowly, inexorably closer. As darkness falls across the town, the window begins to glow once more. The figure appears behind it, unmoving yet alive. Observing the world outside with an intensity that is impossible to ignore. Tilt of the head, the spread of the smile. The silent presence that grows nearer each night. Those who watch understand that the house is more than wood and glass. It is a stage, and the man in the window is both actor and guardian. Repeating a performance that is at once terrifying and mesmerizing. A reminder that some mysteries endure. And some watchers never leave. Thank you for walking with me through the silent towns of Texas. You have traveled past broken homes. Deserted roads. Lost histories. And spirits that still cling to the shadows. These 20 abandoned towns may be forgotten by most. But not by the ghosts who remain. They wander. They whisper. They watch. And they wait. For anyone brave enough to listen. Because some towns are never truly empty. Some memories refuse to fade. And some spirits are always waiting for footsteps to return. If you ever drive through Texas at night and pass a lonely dirt road, remember these stories. Because some towns are never truly empty. Some memories refuse to fade. And some spirits are always waiting for footsteps to return. Until we meet again. Stay safe. Stay curious. And do not walk alone into the darkness.